Today we're going to be talking about CSS resets, quite a key concept to know. Now, it's quite difficult to wrap your head around, but all elements on an HTML page are by default block level elements, i.e. they're in this, every element in HTML is a rectangular element. And every element in HTML also has some default styles, and this is what can create a lot of the inconsistencies between the way browsers display things, because it's disputed between a lot of what we consider to be common practice in terms of what we choose to have, or what some browsers will look at it and have. Hang on a minute. Some browsers have some styling and other browsers have different styling, but we think of it as just, well, that's the way it looks, but it doesn't have to, and that's the point of CSS reset. So what we're going to look at today is, for an example, the H1 element. It's always large and it's always bold, and it traditionally looks a bit annoying. But the idea of CSS is that we can set anything we want. We don't have to be restricted. So H1 elements don't always have to be bold and big. So this is the idea of CSS reset, setting or stripping away default styles so that we can do what we want to do with our elements. So we're just going to take a look at this. If we just dive in and take a look at this, we've got some elements that are commonly used in CSS reset. We've got one element, which is the element that I was just talking about, the H1 tag. We've got an anchor element, we've got a strong element, we've got a paragraph element, we've got a block quote element, we've got a pre element, we've got a definition list element, we've got an unordered list, and we've got an A with an image in it. So let's look at an example of where browser default styling is coming in. Now, first of all, we didn't say in any of our elements that this element is going to be big and bold. We didn't say that we didn't want that. We didn't want any of the elements right up against the browser window, because even this tiny amount of space between that and the browser window, that's being decided and calculated by the browser, and we don't have control over that unless we say that there's none by default until we specifically say there is, and that makes quite a lot of difference, because everything on an HTML page has margin and everything has padding, and this can make things quite inconsistent because of the way the browsers figure them. Why does a block quote element have a margin? Why do list elements have padding and bullets? We haven't said it in the markup. It's just presupposed by the browser. Whereas if we look at it if we look at the same page in IE, we see that this is a perfect example. The page elements a different size, and if I just pop it open in Safari so you can have them kind of look at them like for like, side by side here, we say that in Safari versus in Firefox, the H1 tag is a little bit smaller and a little bit less bold. Now, we didn't set that in our HTML, but it's just the way the browser decides to render it. And the text looks a little bit different in Safari, but we didn't ask for that. So to make it consistent, we're going to hard code the values and strip away all the browser default styling. So that example with Safari kind of shows you why we're going to do this. And we have primary reason for doing this is with browsers like IE, which have major inconsistencies. But yeah, if we look at this, and then we look at the HTML, we see that we've just got a bunch of markup. We haven't got any CSS applied to this. This is all kind of structural markup. I've got a reset.css file ready. So what we're first going to do is look at the hidden elements. So everything that's in your HTML is in your HTML. So if we looked at this with no CSS and no browser default styling, we'd actually see the doc type, and we'd see everything that was in the head section, and we'd see the body tag. That's because at its most basic level, that's the browser default style. It's saying when this browser default CSS runs, make sure that we do not show the head section on any pages. But to kind of show that up, I'm just gonna say which is the browser default for show me this element for any block level element. So if we refresh, that didn't go too well. But anyway, by default, set to display none. But we can show everything that's in the head section with the head selector. So if we refresh it, it's not taking it, but okay, maybe that was a bad example. Let me okay, maybe this was a bad example, but you get the point. You can reverse the styling of any element on a page. So let's look at this. it has a tiny bit browser default margin. So if we basically zero out this margin, this is a common thing in CSS resets. What we're going to basically do is use the star selector. Now, this is the utmost selector in CSS. It trumps everything else. This is basically going to say everything on the page. So what we're saying is we don't want anything on the page to have any margin or padding whatsoever. And the way we're going to do that is say margin 0 pixels, and then padding 0 pixels. And then if we look at just what a weight that has, we refresh. You see how much it's changed? Everything's so much closer to everything else. There's no spacing. That's all created with browser default margin and padding, and we just assume that that's what it is. Everything's spaced out. Well, that's the reason why some websites don't look the same in every browser, because they haven't zeroed out the margin and padding. Now we don't want no margin and padding to be on every element, but what we can do is something like this. Say on P elements, because CSS is cascading, so it reads down. So if we have a value to trump it, then it will show. So if we wanted to still wanted to have some margin on our paragraph elements, and by default they have margin top. So if we wanted to be awkward and say P elements have margin top of 5 pixels, and then all the paragraph elements have margin of 5 pixels on the top. But the point is, we've chosen that. We haven't let we haven't left it up to chance. We haven't let the browser decide it for us. So we can go and say, I don't know, margin and I'll be nice and give them 10 pixels all the way around. So what we've done is we've been specific, and we've given it what we want to give it, rather than just assuming what kind of living and working around what the browser wants us to do. We're going to muscle it into saying, you're going to do exactly what we want you to do, not what you want to do. So people think of these H1 tags as these big elements, and if we look at this in Safari, we see that again it's smaller and quite a lot more elegant in Safari. We can make any element look like a paragraph element, and likewise if we want to do, we can make a paragraph element look like an H1 tag. That's the power of CSS. So we could just go, just as a little exercise, we could go completely reset everything down and say font 8 pixels normal. So an H1 tag is going to be 8 pixels and it's going to have a normal font weight. And that's going to look the same in every browser. So by doing that, what you're doing is you're making it really consistent. Strong elements don't have to have a browser default styling. The idea of a reset is that nothing has to have browser default styling. So you could just go strong font weight normal, and a lot of people often do this next one. We could go A text decoration none, which means it's gonna have no underline. And up here in our global reset, we could also set, this would be quite a boring site, but we could say that every element is going to have a text colour of black. So we've completely overridden that and made those two elements look like normal text. So, and just to give you one more example, we could say an A with an image inside of it is going to have border none, and yeah, that's it, border none. And we could say that a block quote oh no, we don't need to set that, do we? Because we've already said no margin and no padding. But we could also set, and this is quite a common thing to do, unordered list. And then list style none. And then if we look at the page, hasn't got that ugly blue border anymore, and we haven't got that list styling. We could also set pre so that it doesn't, so we don't have the thing of this is that we don't have to settle for the browser defaults. We could could also set that every element had a font. Or Arial. And now, if you look at that, everything's reset back down to. So it's the idea of chaining these eight HTML elements so that they don't have any browser default styling. So I think I explained that badly, but I hope you at least got something from it, and at least the basic concepts. Thanks for watching.